Hello everyone, this is Yoko. On this channel, I will be disseminating information that I have collected in English, as I feel that the information that is happening in China is often not accurately conveyed to countries other than China. We obtain information from multiple media sources, so we would be happy if you could give us your opinions on the content of the video in the comments. Also, my native language is not English, so I use an AI speaker to create audio to convey information correctly. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and support us. This time, I would like to talk about the bomb that China has. Recently, China's debt problem has been attracting attention. It's about the debt of giant Chinese real estate developers. It is true that this is said to be the largest debt in the galaxy, but China has another huge debt problem that is comparable to this. That is the problem of local government debt. If the real estate industry's debt is the largest in the galaxy, local government debt is truly a debt black hole. In the first place, it is difficult to understand the size of the debt. This issue of local debt is related to the keywords of the Chinese economy, loan platforms and shadow banking. It is also connected to China's hidden debt problem. By the way, the lending platform is also called LGFV and raises money by issuing listed bonds. It is a term unique to the Chinese economy, and is closely related to loans, metropolitan bonds, shadow banking, etc. I think this is a difficult term to understand for those who have recently become interested in China's debt problem. There are many parts that are difficult to understand without prior knowledge as they relate to the special circumstances of China. Therefore, this time I would like to explain the financial resources of local governments in China, including these terms. First of all, there are administrative units and local governments in China, and I will talk about how each of these administrative units secures financial resources. Generally, local governments rely on taxes as their source of income, but taxes alone are not enough because expenditures far exceed tax revenue. For this reason, there is also a system of transfer payments from the central government. This is a system in which the central government withdraws money from areas with high tax revenue and provides support to areas with a shortage. However, there are currently very few regions in China where there is a surplus in tax revenue. It is unclear what will happen to subsidies from the central government in the future. Up until now, land rental has been a major source of income for local governments. In China, it is common for local governments to manage land, lease it to real estate developers for periods such as 70 years, and receive fees in exchange for the lease. Land rental was one of the major sources of finance. Due to the recent downturn in the real estate industry, income from land rentals has decreased sharply. Tax revenues have also declined, as has revenue from land rentals. Distributions from the central government are also decreasing or uncertain. In such a situation, there is another way to raise funds. That is the theme of this time: municipal bonds. I think this system of municipal bonds is difficult for people outside of China to understand. If you are hearing about it for the first time, you may wonder, why are they creating such a strange system? I will explain them in order. Local governments in China cannot borrow money directly. Local governments can raise money in the form of municipal bonds, but there are strict restrictions on this. There is a limit on how much you can borrow, and you are not allowed to borrow more than the limit. In the absence of such regulation, there is the potential for more wasteful spending, so restrictions are necessary. It is precisely because we anticipate and understand each other's behavior that such a framework of limits is in place. If there are policies, there are also countermeasures. Local governments have introduced lending platforms as a means of raising funds. This is where the local government establishes a special corporation on its own behalf. This special corporation is called LGFV, Local Government Financing Vehicle, and it raises money and carries out projects that should be handled by the government. This includes projects related to civil engineering such as real estate development and road construction. Public works are not necessarily for profit. For example, when we build a road, we do not aim to generate revenue by collecting tolls from users of that road. By building roads and bridges, local governments seek indirect benefits by stimulating the local economy and increasing tax revenue. So, I lent money to build the bridge, but the special corporation itself is not profitable. Therefore, there is a suspicion that the money lent will not be returned. In general, investing money in a place where there is no return is considered high risk. However, the special keyword of the Chinese economy, the word implicit guarantee of the government appears. That is, the government implements public projects through special legal entities. When raising funds, an implicit guarantee is given to the lender that if something goes wrong, the government will return the money on your behalf. Therefore, it is thought that there is a low possibility that the loaned money will not be returned, and a large amount of funds will flow into special corporations. Specifically, funds flow into special corporations in the form of purchasing local bonds issued by special corporations. This makes the money flowing into special corporations acting on behalf of local governments very large. According to an article in the Nihon Keizai Shimbun, the total amount is 13.6 trillion yuan. When converted to Japanese yen, it is equivalent to about 270 trillion yen. This is a very large amount, but a search in Chinese may show a different amount. Looking at Chinese articles, some say 60 trillion yuan, while others say 100 trillion yuan. In the Japanese article I mentioned earlier, it was 13.6 trillion yuan, but in the Chinese article, a much larger amount is displayed. According to IMF data, the percentage of GDP is also shown, and it is said to be equivalent to about half of the GDP announced by the Chinese government. The total amount varies considerably depending on the source, but there is no doubt that it is a huge amount. Listed bonds are considered the safest investment in China. The reason for this is that, as mentioned earlier, it is believed that there is an implicit guarantee from the government. Many people think that even if the special corporation is unable to repay the money, the local government will repay it on their behalf. There are reasons for this to be reliable rather than hope. If special corporations are unable to repay their debts, the government's implicit guarantee will be broken, and the willingness to lend funds to special corporations will decline. This is because local governments may find themselves running out of funds. Local governments rely on debt, so if repayments are delayed, local government services may be suspended. For example, in Yunnan province, tax revenue last year was about 200 billion yuan. Tax revenue is down 10% compared to the previous year. On the other hand, the listed bonds issued by Yunnan province were approximately 207.1 billion yuan, which is more than the tax revenue. This shows that local governments that rely on listed bonds can face problems if funding stagnates. Defaults on listed bonds have existed for some time, but they are known as technical defaults, where governments repay creditors immediately after a default occurs. However, if the government were to suspend repayments, the impact would be significant. Moreover, the current Chinese economy relies on listed bonds. Not only local government finances, but the entire Chinese economy depends on listed bonds. The background to this is that China's current economic activity is sluggish, and the government is creating demand through public investment. The government invests in various fields to support the economy. However, since the Chinese economy is not in a good condition, it can be said that the economy is maintained due to public investment by the government. On the other hand, the financial resources that depend on public investment are heavily dependent on the Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier. Therefore, if the higher court stagnates, there is a high possibility that public investment will also be delayed, leading to a loss of support for the Chinese economy and the risk of hollowing out the domestic economy. Therefore, it is important not to destroy confidence in listed bonds and to avoid causing defaults. However, the focus is on whether defaults on listed bonds can actually be avoided. Local governments in China rely on debt, which they must repay if they are forced to make interest or principal payments on listed bonds. However, this method cannot be continued for a long time. In the long term, the debt burden will increase and may eventually lead to bankruptcy. There is also a shortage of income from land rentals by local governments. In the case of Yunnan, tax revenue decreased by 10% year-on-year, and income from land rental decreased by an order of magnitude. Specifically, it decreased by 55% compared to the previous year. This indicates a decline in new property development and fewer companies wanting to rent land. When the economy slows down, cost-cutting becomes a focus. However, if public investment declines, the quality of public infrastructure may deteriorate as local government services deteriorate. As a result, the worse the situation, the worse the financial conditions will deteriorate at an accelerated rate. In fact, regional disparities are widening in China today, and there is a possibility that regions with fiscal problems will significantly reduce the total number of civil servants. Expenses are expected to be phased out before payroll, water and power outages occur. This is the true severity of an economic downturn and its tangible impact on people's lives. It is highly likely that such a phenomenon will spread in China in the future. China's debt problem is attracting attention in the real estate industry. but it is an issue that indirectly affects ordinary people. When local government finances go bankrupt, there is a high possibility that economic activity will stagnate, such as problems with administrative services and long queues for administrative procedures at government offices. The collapse of local government finances has a very big impact. This is one of those time bombs that will eventually materialize if no means are found to prevent its eventual collapse. Just as the real estate industry has been facing a crisis for a long time, problems with local government finances are bound to surface at some point. That's all for now. See you next time.